and gentlemen, we have all made it successfully to a Friday afternoon, baby. We've also made it to the NHL trade deadline. Within the hour, we'll find out if the red-hot New York Islanders want to add to their playoff push. We'll find out if the New York Rangers want to continue to add pieces to a team that better win the Stanley Cup, because if they don't, it's a disaster. We'll find out all those answers within the next hour. Any trade of significance that goes down, you'll hear the glass break. We'll mix in some baseball a little bit later on. But I remember just a few short days ago, something happened in the world of football. The Denver Broncos announced they had released Russell Wilson. And one thing that I think is very, very important is to do what I like to call the New York check. Just a quick check on, hey, okay, Russell Wilson's available. Does he make sense for the New York Jets? And we very quickly said, nah, makes no sense. Nate Hackett, Russell Wilson, backing up Rodgers. And then we got to the Giants, and I was surprised how Tiki thought about it and Sean thought about it. And we had a nice little discussion, like a mini discussion. And then we moved on, thinking, all right, that was it. We did our little New York check. But Russell Wilson will probably end up in Pittsburgh or Las Vegas or what have you. And then the news broke in just the last few hours that Russell Wilson decided he was tired of pumping his own gas. He stopped in the state of New Jersey.
Oh, shut up with the gas.
He let someone else pump his own gas. And then he met with the New York Football Giants for what they're calling an exploratory meeting.
Oh, so interesting. Ed.
What do you think,
Right.
Deke?
So I remember you asked it. We did the New York check. It was at the Jets and the Giants. And it was kind of like, no, definitely no for the Jets. And it was like okay with the Giants. But I got it. Like, I don't want them, but I could understand why it would be somewhat interesting. And look, I want to say hell no to this. Like, I really do. I want to say no chance do I want Russell Wilson after 2 consecutive seasons destroying years for coaches out in Denver. First Nate Hackett, who's now with the Jets, and obviously Sean Payton, who couldn't wait to get rid of him. I think when the season started, he wanted to get rid of Russell Wilson. So my gut says no, 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 no. But when I think about the opportunity that it brings to the Giants to have a known winner, whether or not he's going to fit the system or not, but someone who can make plays, who might be over the hill, but still has a little bit left, as we saw at points last season, it kind of gets interesting. And it's why the Giants took this meeting. Now, is it going to happen? I don't know. This came out of nowhere for me. Like, this didn't seem like it was on the Giants' radar. But there is one thing that you can take from this. The New York Giants are done, as was reported, and from the Combine, with Daniel Jones. You don't take a meeting with Russell Wilson unless you're already ready to move on from Daniel Jones. Now, he's going to be here because he's got a $40 million salary, and the cap hit would be exorbitant for them to absorb. But it is clear they're moving on from Daniel Jones. Whether it's this year or next year, it's happening.
If you're moving on from Daniel Jones, which I think they should do, I'm in that camp of he can't stay healthy. You can't rely on him. Mm-hmm. It's time to move on. Then I would also be in the camp, which I've been when we've talked about this, that you got to find his replacement.
Yeah.
And when you're picking as high as the New York Giants happen to be picking this year, a place you hope you're never picking again because you feel like you'll be competent enough to not be picking 6th in the NFL draft, that you should take advantage of it. If the New York Giants sign Russell Wilson, and yes, from a financial standpoint, no big deal. He will make the veterans minimum. It will cost them nothing. But if you sign Russell Wilson, you know what that reeks of me? To me? It reeks of a head coach and a general manager that's not thinking about 3 years from now, not thinking about turning this franchise around. You know what they're thinking about?
What's that?
Short-term fix and saving their jobs.
Actually, I don't think – I see it completely different
than you. He's 36 years old, or at least he's going to be 36 years old.
I see it completely different than that.
How so?
So if Russell Wilson gets, I don't know, signed by the New York Giants and he's here and he's a veteran, I see him as a short-term, short bridge to whoever they acquire this year, likely in the draft.
So you think they would sign Russell Wilson and still draft
right,
a quarterback?
Because I think with Daniel Jones, because he's the way it's perceptually looked at, under contract for 3 more seasons, in theory. Obviously, he didn't get out of it after this one, but his contract is for 3 more seasons. Daniel Jones isn't the mentor for the young player. It just doesn't really make sense because Daniel Jones is still climbing in theory in his career. Whereas Russell Wilson's on the backside of his career. He can win some games. We saw it last year. It wasn't great, but he can win some games, right? But he's also like perfectly positioned to come in for a year and mentor a young player.
Well, hold on, take a real quick time out.
That's what it feels like.
We got to take a quick time out.
So play and mentor, and then see you later.
Oh, hold on.
That's what that would feel like to me.
I want to address that in a second, but I got to ask you something.
What's that?
All right. And you know guys around the league. You do meetings with guys around the leagues. I'm giving you a fan opinion, and you tell me if I'm crazy. And I'm going to ask it while telling you an opinion. Okay. It's like a question opinion.
All right.
Do you think Russell Wilson is a mentor?
I didn't think that. I mean, no.
Exactly.
But I didn't think that Kurt Warner was either.
Oh, touche.
I'm just telling you.
And was he? Do you think he was a good mentor for Eli?
Absolutely was.
Fair enough.
It's one thing that he doesn't get a credit for, and obviously because Eli was bad that rookie season. But I think having that experienced voice, who ultimately became a Hall of Famer in the same meeting room with Eli, it was important.
All right, I want to get something straight though, because I think what's so fascinating about interest in Russell Wilson is there's a lot of layers to this.
It's very similar. Now that you think of I think about Kirk Cousins. It's very similar.
Kurt Warner.
It's very similar.
Okay.
Because Kurt didn't think he was done.
Right. And I don't think Russell Wilson thinks he's done.
Of course he doesn't think he's done.
There's a lot of layers to this. I want to make sure I'm getting what you're selling here on Russ.
Go ahead.
Bring him in on a 1-year deal.
Yep.
You're done
That's all
with
he's
Daniel
getting, by the
Jones.
way.
I agree. But you're still drafting a quarterback, and you're still looking for your future.
Yes.
So you're going to, next year in the quarterback room, forget Tommy DeVito, poor guy's screwed. Forget about him. You're going to have a quarterback room of Daniel Jones coming off a torn ACL, a quarterback room of Russell Wilson, while even though he's not making a lot of money from the Giants, he's Russell Wilson. He's been in multiple Super Bowls, and he's still getting paid like $38 million. It's just coming from a different franchise.
Yes.
And then also some young quarterback who's being groomed for the future, but has basically no shot to play in 2024 because he's being CB'd by both Russell Wilson and Daniel Jones. Yes. That's your plan.
Yes,
okay.
That's what it feels like to me. Now, he has a Daniel Jones could be traded. I'm just looking at it.
Can he?
The cap, the pre-trade, the pre-June 1 trade cap hit is $33 million. Seems like a ton, but the cap went up significantly. So if you are Brian Dable and Joe Shane and you want to extend your window, I already said they kind of were lobbying for one more year to 2024. If you want to extend that window to like 2026, you draft a quarterback.
Right.
And you bring in a guy in Russell Wilson who can win and has a history of winning, and you let him be that guy for next year and then groom the guy behind him. That gives you like 2 more years of runway. So just the idea and the fact that they're having a conversation with Russell Wilson tells me that they're at least thinking about that plan. Like, we know what their plan is. Yeah, we hope Daniel Jones is our starting quarterback. They're going to say all the right things. We believe he's on track. He's healthy, yada, yada. But we're adding a quarterback. That's what the plan is.
Right.
Plan B is what they just explored with Russell Wilson coming into town yesterday.
Well, I'm very excited to let the audience know Sean Morash decided to come to work today.
I'm here, baby.
So, your thoughts on Russell Wilson?
I am giddy today.
Giddy?
I'm excited today. I wish I knew he was in the airport. I would have showed him around town and helped him find a home. I want Russ in New York now.
With what plan, though? The plan of
by the way,
the plan that I'm talking about.
Tiki's plan, I want him to have a chair right next to Joe Shane. It makes a lot of sense for 2 reasons. Number one, where the Giants currently sit at 6th overall, 2 second-rounders as well, they cannot guarantee themselves one of the top 3 quarterbacks. More on that later. I am sure they're still going to explore trading up. They're going to explore all of these options. However, outside of Caleb Williams, all of these guys, from J.J. McCarthy to Michael Penix down to the other 2, Jaden Daniels and Drake May, all of them have enough warts that I'm sure under the perfect plan, a team like the Giants and Brian Dable would like the quote-unquote Patrick Mahomes plan of sitting for a year or Jordan Love anyway. And Russell Wilson, you talked about mentor. You can't tell me he didn't help Geno Smith at all for that year or two that he was in Seattle before he became a starter and helped them revitalize.
It's different. You know why that's different, by the way?
Because he didn't know he would know he was
Bingo.
mentoring.
Bingo.
Yeah,
He was mentoring a guy who in his mind is like, well, if he ever starts, it ain't going to be here. He also wasn't a kid that he was
But
mentoring.
here's the thing, and you talked about it, and there's offset money and all of this. He's only going to get a one-year deal, Russell Wilson. So he has no choice but to be on his best behavior. He has no choice but to know, you know what, no matter what, this could be a win-win spot where I play really well, and then I get to revitalize my career elsewhere. And, oh, by the way, a one-year deal, the Giants would get back in that comp pick formula if he signed somewhere else, turn Russell Wilson into a third-round pick down the line as well. I just think it makes all the sense in the world. And on top of it all, the biggest issue I think me and Tiki certainly have had with Daniel Jones, and maybe you're separate from this, Evan, isn't the playing ability, it's the injury problem. And the one thing that the Giants have with this out after 2 years with the Daniel Jones contract is if Daniel Jones gets hurt again, then suddenly they're going to have to kick in guaranteed money on year 3 and 4. So if they get Russell Wilson in here, as opposed to, insert Tyrod Taylor again, whatever backup you want to pick, Sam Darnold, you get a guy who could bona fide start and give you a reason not to play Daniel Jones, to not risk him getting hurt, to save that money at the end of the year. If they bring in Russell Wilson, I think there's a good chance we're done with Daniel Jones totally.
Oh, I think you're definitely done with Daniel Jones.
I think the fact that they're talking to Russell Wilson tells you that in their minds they're done with Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I think that Rich Eisen was 1,000% right based on the rumors he heard at the combine. Number one, number two, I apologize because I had read everything Joe Shane had said in his postseason news conference to what he said at the combine as a guy that still believed in Daniel Jones. Actions speak louder than words.
Yeah.
And the actions are of a general manager, rightfully so, by the way, who's saying, I don't believe in this guy, and I want to move on. But the way I look at this is, what are you doing with Russell Wilson? That's the key to all this to me. Because my first impression is if you sign Russell Wilson after exploratory conversations and they lead to a place where you guys want to hook up and you get together on a one-year deal, my knee-jerk reaction is that they're not going to execute your plan or Sean's plan. My knee-jerk reaction is they're basically saying, you know what? Russell will compete with Daniel Jones. He'll beat him out for the job, and that could be our guy for the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
That's how I sort of take it, because Russ is 35 and a 36 with a pretty damn good resume.
But Evan, that's not bad. Like if the Giants sign Russell Wilson and he plays this year, whatever happens with Daniel Jones happens, whether they trade him or he just loses the job and he's sitting behind him. If Russell Wilson plays this year and he plays well, and they also bring in a young quarterback, doesn't that benefit the young quarterback as well?
I'm not against them doing it.
If he plays well and it ends up being 2 years, or let's say even 3 years, this young guy quarterback gets to sit for a couple of years, and now you don't obviously get to evaluate him, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's what we talk about that we want young quarterbacks to be able to do, not have to play right away. And if Russ is good and it becomes more than a one-year deal, then it puts him in the scenario that we've been talking about with the teams that have young quarterbacks. Right? The team is good when the young quarterback took over. Pat Mahomes was on a good Kansas City Chiefs. Brock Purdy was on a good 49ers team. Those are the quarterbacks, these young ones, that tend to be successful. Jordan Love was on a good Green Bay Packers team. They weren't championship viable, but they're not bad. They're not the Houston Texans that C.J. Stroud had to lift out of the doldrums down there in Houston. So, like, when you have a good team and you put a young quarterback in a good situation, better things happen than, this team sucks. Let's just throw the young quarterback out there. He'll figure it out. That is usually not a winning formula.
No. I am not against the idea of signing Russell Wilson as long as they're committed to what you're saying, which is a long-term plan to find the answer. I'm not convinced that's the case, though.
No, hold
if they
on.
sign
Why
Russell
not?
Wilson,
Why not?
I just told you.
No, but they have said all along here, Joe Shane has said, no matter what, they were going to be in the pool for a veteran quarterback, and it would not prohibit them from drafting one. Now, if you're
There's a difference between veteran quarterback without name and Russell Wilson, who's been to the Pro Bowl 9 times and won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, but
some
that's
of
not
those,
that same guy.
And I was going to say, some of those veteran quarterbacks without name probably are going to cost more than Russell Wilson's going to cost. So
It's not about cost, Sean. I'm not bringing up cost.
But that becomes the best of both worlds, doesn't it?
Listen, you're not listening to me. What I'm saying is I'm okay with signing Russell Wilson as long as you continue to pursue finding your future quarterback. You obviously agree with me. You're just mad that I'm presenting the possibility that they're not going to do that.
No,
That's all I'm telling you. If you sign Russell...
What would prevent them from doing that?
Because, as you've said a million times, you got to build that ass. And so instead of using a premium pick on a quarterback, they may use premium picks on wide receivers and offensive linemen and linebackers.
Right, hold on.
And then it's a quarterback room of Russ, Daniel Jones, and Tommy DeVito.
There's still free agency that we're have to deal with until, and again, we're going to know all this before the draft.
Yes.
But free agency is going to determine a lot about the direction, both of the Jets and the Giants. And who are those asses that they're going to build and stick in front of whoever the quarterback is. But I think what Sean is saying, and he's right about this, is that if you want to build the line with free agency, great. And now you have your quarterback that you can address in two different ways. A veteran that you bring in, it's going to cost you nothing in Russell Wilson. He's free, so he can sign wherever he wants.
Yes.
Right? It could be in Las Vegas. It could be who is the other team that gets
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh could be in Pittsburgh.
That's where he's meeting next.
Right? It could be any of these spots. But coming to the Giants, he'll have a real chance to play.
Yes.
Right? And if he plays well and he also helps mentor whoever they also now potentially draft, then he's in the perfect spot. It's a perfect win-win for the Giants and for Russell Wilson.
No, but hear me out. Now, I'm agreeing with you.
I don't think this is their plan A. This is not their plan A.
What, the Giants' plan A?
This is the Giants' plan A is not Russell Wilson.
What's the Giants' plan A?
Giants' plan A is Daniel Jones is our starting quarterback. We're going to find one, whether that's we're going to move up in the draft, or we're gonna wait for one to follow us in the draft, second rounder, whether it's Michael Penix or Bo Nix or whoever the heck is out there.
Okay,
I believe that's their plan. That's their plan A. They're exploring with Russell Wilson, which tells me that plan A and plan B have the same result, which is Daniel Jones is not our starting quarterback in 2 years.
Forget Daniel Jones, because we all agree they should move on from him. All I'm simply saying, and here's what's funny. You agree with me. You're just mad that I'm skeptical of the Giants' plan. If they sign Russell Wilson, everything you laid out, you're right.
Right.
You still need to find your future at quarterback. That's what I'm making clear.
Yes.
That can't change. I'm skeptical they're going to do that.
Why do you think that that's not going to happen? You think they're in a win-now situation?
I think they're in a win some games. Let's continue to build the roster with draft capital situation.
Look, they won.
I would disagree with that. I think they should draft a quarterback. I've said that from the beginning. Or trade for Justin Fields. I'm not eliminating that, but they're clearly not interested in doing that. And I've made that clear to you why. I think they need to find their long-term replacement for Daniel Jones. Do we all agree with that? We all on the same page? Yeah. They need to find their Okay. I'm okay with adding Russell Wilson as long as the pursuit of finding their long-term answer at quarterback remains the same. So we agree. Where we differ is I'm skeptical they're going to do it. Mm-hmm. I'm skeptical that this is great. Like Sean's framing it. We get Russell Wilson.
What gives you that skepticism?
Why not?
Your Jet hateration?
It has nothing to do with the Jets. It has to do with hesitation on that. What makes you think they are? How about that? Why does it have to be me?
Because he said so.
He didn't say exactly what he's going to do. Joe Shane hasn't specifically said we're adding a veteran and drafting a quarterback.
Here's what I know. Russell Wilson is not your future.
Agreed.
He is not your. I don't care where he goes.
We agree.
I don't care if he goes to Vegas or he goes to Pittsburgh or he comes to the New York Giants. He is not your future. He is no longer good enough to be looked at as, he's our future for 3 or 4 years. He's not that player anymore. Mm-hmm. But he does have success. He is a veteran, and he's won. And so if they bring in Russell Wilson, especially with the number that it's costing them, that's why I think it makes sense. If he was a regular free agent quarterback like Kirk Cousins, it would make 0 sense to bring Russell Wilson in. Right. But the fact that he's going to make $2 million a year or $3 million, whatever the heck the number is, it's going to be minimal. It's going to be less collectively with that quarterback, with Daniel Jones, Russell Wilson, and whatever quarterback they bring in than it is for most teams that are at the high end of the market. Right? Just because of the numbers. And so it's not mutually exclusive to bring in Russell Wilson and then also go get another quarterback, a young quarterback that could potentially be your future. But all I know, and my biggest takeaway from it, is that I now feel convinced that Daniel Jones is not that future.
I agree.
Despite being 26 years old.
Yes.
He's not that future any longer because you don't have an exploratory conversation with Russell Wilson if you believe in Daniel Jones.
Now, to the Giant fans out there, are you getting excited? Are you interested? Are you repulsed? Sean's excited. Some Giant fans are repulsed. What I find humorous about this is not that long ago, I'd say it was about a year and a half ago, Russell Wilson to the Giant conversation occurred right here on WFAN, and the tone of the conversation was far different. Far different. We were giving up picks. We were giving up assets. We were saying, you got to trade for a franchise quarterback. What are we doing? And then the Denver Broncos did it, and it turned into one of the worst trades in the history of football.
No, it is the worst trade in the history of football. That was 2 years ago. Worst trade in the history of the National Football League.
And now, when we talk about Russ to the Giants, the conversation tone is completely different.
Right.
It's veterans minimum. It's Tiki saying he's here for a year.
But that's only because $39 million of his salary is going to be paid by the Denver Broncos.
No, I get why, but it's very, very different. Do you want him? Because they met. And yes, Russell Wilson got to experience something that a lot of our audience loves and experiences every day. Someone else pumped his gas in the state of New Jersey.
Shut up.
We'll get to your calls next, 877-337-6666. We are now within 38 minutes of the NHL trade deadline. If the Rangers or Islanders or Devils make a move of significance, you will hear the glass break. And even if they don't, we'll give you a quick reaction of what did and didn't happen at the trade deadline coming up a little bit after 3 o'clock.